gather around because the Grunge Bible team is back with another episode of our podcast, the Grunge Bible Podcast. My name is Ethan Shalloway. I'm joined by Chris Salona, your host, and this is episode 191. And Chris, that's impressive, right? It's very impressive.
It's impressive.
But we won't harp on that too much. All I want to know, Chris, is how are you today? It's really the only thing that matters.
Yeah, how am I? I think there's a band out there that wrote a song that articulates my feeling a little bit better than I could myself right now, and it's going to be spoken about later in the episode. But honestly, Ethan, to use the wise words written in the past, I just can't see the end of me. My whole expanse I cannot see. I formulate infinity and store it deep inside of me. I really just can't see the end. Start a podcast, they say, and then what they don't tell you is you end up having to record at like 10 p.m. on a Wednesday night of all nights. But I'm good, man. I suppose despite all of that, I've had a good week so far, busy week, getting a lot done, having a successful go of it at work this month, which is great. Lifting's good, getting ready for the holidays, which are coming up soon. Yeah, man, by the time this episode comes out on the 18th, Thanksgiving will be a week and a half away, so looking forward to that. But yeah, man, all's good on this front, even though I can't see the end of me. What about you? How are you today, Ethan Shalloway?
Yeah, everybody knows by now that when we ask how we're doing, we're going to groan and complain for a second, but you guys all know we're doing good. We're getting through. We're fine.
We kind of have to do that.
Huh?
We kind of have to do that too.
Yeah, it's by our producer says he's like more complaining, more bitching. So we're just trying to appease Drew. So yeah, similarly, yeah, dude, life is just hectic, right? Just moving parts, always like ins and outs and yeses and nos and stuff. And so it's, Wednesday, 8:30, 9:30 Eastern Central Time. And I'm making a trek back home. I got a day and a half of driving ahead to go back for a wedding for a good friend. And then I was in a predicament because the holiday is like a week later, Thanksgiving. So I'm going to, I was able to get some work with Andy Engelman, Engelman Masonry back home, one of our good friends. He's been on the pod.
Yeah, an alumnus of the Grunge Bible Podcast.
Yep, and he said, he said you're always a part of the team. So luckily, I can go home and work, and
that's huge.
That'll be nice because it's just a change of pace, and I'll be able to be close to family for a little bit, and then I'll come back and kind of have a few in limbo for a little bit, and then have the holidays. But January 1st is just so appealing right now. Like the new year. And
think so?
I mean, I love the holidays. I don't want to rush through them at all, but like, maybe it's just a false sense of security will come in the new year, and they'll be like a little bit, just feel like you got to get through the holidays.
We'll all be another year wiser.
Yeah, I'm really grateful for the holidays. So don't get me wrong. I love them.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to them.
I'm doing good. I'm just, just busy, right? Just busy. Just fitting things in where they can, and it's just figuring it out.
Yeah, we're doing our best.
Yeah, what are you gonna do? So I hope everybody out there is having a wonderful start to the week, because it is Monday when this comes out. And yeah, November's rolling along. So hang in there, everybody out there. Keep trucking along, and I hope that this podcast finds you well. Right?
Absolutely. And I just have to reference another song lyric here, so that this is going to be a really deep cut that there's probably maybe one or two other people out there that are even going to know what the hell I'm talking about. But before I became enlightened into all that is holy in terms of music, I used to be a relatively large fan of country music, and like there's like the worst kind of country music, like the country pop and all that bullshit. Like my first concert was Jason Aldean, for example. But there's a country band out there who went by the name of Montgomery Gentry, and they have a song called Something to Be Proud Of, and there's a lyric in there, and it says, "If all you ever really do is the best you can, then you did it, man." And that's what it's all about. You just got to do the best you can.
Yeah.
And that is something to be proud of. So you didn't know you were getting a Montgomery Gentry reference on episode 191, but there it is.
Yeah, all you are is all you are, right?
Yeah, all in all is all that we are. And
all that we are, yeah.
all that we are today is going to be commemorating the 31st anniversary of the recording and performance of Nirvana's MTV Unplugged in New York, which took place on November the 18th, 1993 at Sony Studios in New York City. So very fitting.
This day in music,
when Grunge Bible Enterprises got together to plan the strategic R&D for episode 191, the calendar was kind to us, and we'd never done a dedicated episode to Unplugged. So that is what you were in store for today. So buckle up and hold on to your hats because we are unplugging, and we are Nirvana-ing, and we are meeting the brothers meet. And
we should have did this episode with no microphones, just the laptop microphones, and just like really bad audio, and just like call it the Unplugged episode.
Absolutely. I think we might
channel our Cobain,
maybe just unplug right now.
No edits, just roll it. We should.
Well, that's
live.
The thing. I mean, they did this
live.
They did their Unplugged set, one take. No second takes of songs. They just ripped through it, minimal practice,
restarted songs.
And honestly, Ethan, we've been doing this for a while, and I don't know what people's expectations or assumptions are about this podcast, but one take, no edits is something that we really identify with quite a lot. And something else that we identify a lot with is the fact that Nirvana did not spend a whole hell of a lot of time rehearsing for this. They just kind of went in and did it. And,
we're
rehearsals, research, we definitely channel the Unplugged energy.
We're channeling that
week in and week out. So really excited to bring that to you. We are able to bring that to you because people give us money to sustain the production and the distribution of this podcast. And there are a couple of avenues to do that, which you may well know by now. Most notably, we have a Patreon, which we have a $2, $5, and $10 tier. If you join any of those tiers, we will thank you on an ensuing episode, and we will reach out to you and ask if there is a specific episode that you would like us to do. We are working through the backlog of recent new Patreon members, looking at all of your awesome episode ideas, and we're planning on getting all of those out in the near future. But it's pretty simple. You join the Patreon and we'll do an episode about whatever the hell you want us to do. So another week that we can't ring the bell, unfortunately, but hopefully, in the season. Now we have the Thanksgiving angle coming up soon where, if you're thankful for us, you got to pony up and give us some money. So
yeah, we're going to lean into that right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we have to.
And also just, from the way we talk, you can tell that we need some extra motivation. If you are out there and you're thankful, great opportunity. You said $2, shitty cup of coffee. We've talked about that before. It really is great. You get 4 episodes for $2, $5, or $10. Let's just do it. Ring the bell.
Let's put it this way, Ethan. Like you have 10 hours of driving tomorrow. I have to be up in like 7 hours. And we're sitting here recording a podcast for you. And I want to ask you out there, would you be doing the same for us if the roles were reversed?
I love that. It's so true. The dedication here is just incredible. And
191 weeks in a row.
Yeah,
tell me anything else in your life that has been there for you for 191 consecutive weeks. There's been a lot of shit that's gone on the last 191 weeks. Let me tell you that. And one thing that's always been there has been Ethan, and has been me, and has been this podcast. So show us some love, man. We need this.
Yeah, absolutely. I talked about it with somebody last week, and they said we're doing a podcast around episode 190 in a row every Monday. Haven't missed one. Kind of was impressive. It felt like I needed to, I was looking for a pat on the back there for a second, but then I realized that, no one listens. No, people listen. You guys are out there.
And the best pat on the back is giving us your money. And if you join the top tier, I will do something that will be saying your name every single week, as I am about to do for everyone that is currently a top tier Patreon supporter. So all of these individuals give us $10 a month to help sustain this podcast. And end of the year, beginning of a new year, that's where a lot of our costs are incurred with subscriptions and hosting and all of those things. So if you want to make that a little bit easier for us, you know what to do. Click that link in the show notes. So at this time, the top tier Patreon supporters are Kara K, Black Hole Sean, Doug Endy, D-Boat, Down in the Hole Flat flat out fucked. Eddie Vedder got me through my second divorce. Fuck Soup, Epona, Gochujang, Jamie Lynn, Jade Mercado, Carlene Salona, King Buzzo stole my hair, Keith White, Michael Dooley Project, Millie, Nikki Six, Pile of Punk, Russell, Seattle 4 fanboy from New Jersey, Abraham is the cutest basset hound ever, Sherry Matthews, and What the Fuck is Up Denny's. So thanks everybody for your continued support, and I hope to be adding to that list in the near future. So that's it for the thankfulness portion of the episode, and now I think we get into some This Day in Music, and the calendar has been kind to us in addition to giving us the primary topic, which will be Nirvana's Unplugged. But Ethan, what do you say we get it started here?
Yeah, just think any of these could have been our topic. We could have did a whole episode on any of these.
We were thinking about it. We were thinking about it.
There's some good ones in there that, I mean, yeah, we'll get to them later. But I clicked on my Spotify to, look at an album because we're going to talk about here. Not Unplugged, but I just got a notification that Wrapped season is almost here. And I know that you're a big Spotify Wrapped.
Steal yourselves for it.
In the Grunge Bible podcast or Grunge Bible world, we love seeing people's Wrapped, and I can't wait. I know what my number one song will be, and I think I know who my number one artist will be. So
is it gonna be a repeat?
Of my number one artist should
year,
be
right?
A lot of Goose, but I don't think that it's gonna. I think Delicate Steve is
is going back to back.
I think Delicate Steve might be back to back to back. I don't know, but I know what my number one song is, and you were there for it. Will
it be Two Lovers by Delicate Steve?
No, I'd love that. No, think more.
Goose,
Circa Dose type music.
Oh, it's the bachelor party song.
Clip mix 2.
Yeah,
it's a minute long, and we played it for like 4 hours straight.
Yeah, it's really one way to juke the stats, and I'm excited for that. And the best part about that is because we have this podcast, we end up on other people's Spotify Wrapped, which is pretty cool. Seeing the Grunge Bible podcast up there.
But we'll talk about that soon. So
yeah, I think end of this month it'll be coming. Usually November 30th, around then, or beginning of December, it's out. So be looking forward to that.
People download Spotify.
Oh yeah.
All right. You want to go first?
I'll let you lead it off.
You got to get the second one. See, we pick these. We have strategic ways to do this. So
absolutely.
All right. November 18th, throughout music history, in 1962. Kirk Hammett of Metallica is born. Happy birthday, Kirk.
Happy birthday, Kirk. He will be the second most important Kirk that we will 62? Talk about today, behind, it's Kurt Kirkwood, not Kirk Kirkwood. But Kirk Hammett, Metallica.
Kurt Cobain.
I am not a Metallica person, but I won't let that get in the way of me wishing Kirk Hammett a happy birthday on this lovely day. He'll be turning 62 today, so that's really exciting for Mr. Hammett.
Awesome.
Absolutely. Let's kick it forward to the one that I've been waiting to discuss. And there was a point in time many episodes ago where we could have spoken about this particular topic, and we chose to wipe it from Song of the Week. But a few weeks ago, this topic somehow made it in by way of one of these individuals' deaths. And we went on a little bit of a discussion about it. But nevertheless, on November 18th, 1970, after 13 years of marriage, Jerry Lee Lewis divorces Myra Gale Brown, who, by the way, was his first cousin once removed, who, by the way, was also just 13 years old when they married. So we had this discussion a couple of weeks ago about the fact that the killer married not only his first cousin, but married a child, and that's really unbelievably fucked up. And now we get to commemorate the day that they divorced. She later goes on to claim that they spent just 3 nights together during their marriage. The best part here, normally I kind of extrapolate, where we get these from and kind of write it in our own words, but this one was too good, and I just took this verbatim from the website where we found it. It says, Lewis takes up abstinence and sobriety, but abandons that lifestyle after a few months.
He is a quitter. He couldn't. He
quit quitting.
He quit quitting. Yeah, exactly. That's
It's unbelievable.
So wait, after they divorced, he decided to take up abstinence.
Apparently, yeah. I guess like
sobriety.
marrying your first child cousin wasn't too bad, but I guess in the divorce of in the aftermath of the divorce, he decided he needed to change. Only after 13 years of it, mind you, but and apparently it only lasted for a few months. So no confirmed action that he went back
together during that 13 years.
Yeah. I mean, who's to say where the truth is, but obviously there was some very heinous grooming going on by a rich and famous man of a 13-year-old, which is unbelievably fucked up. But he took up abstinence and sobriety, but abandons that lifestyle after a few months. That's like you have a weekend that's too heavy, and it's like, okay, like I really got to buckle back. I really got to buckle back in.
Friday comes around.
Your friends text you like, "What's the move on Friday?" And you're like, "I'm there." So I guess, from the top to the bottom to the killer to us, those are similar, except the only difference is like we don't marry our cousins who are 13 years old.
No.
Yeah, we don't do that.
All right. For the next one, I'll let you take the next one too, actually.
All right. I'll double up here. On this day in 1975, David Big Papi Ortiz is born. This man was an unbelievable element of my childhood, helped me fall in love with baseball. One of the greatest power hitters of the modern era, one of the greatest designated hitters of all time, the pride of Red Sox Nation. And I was very lucky. In 2004, I was there at Game 4 of the 2004 American League Championship Series. The Sox were down 3-0 against the New York Yankees, and Kevin Millar walked. Dave Roberts stole second. Billy Miller drove him home a couple of extra innings later. David Ortiz takes Paul Quantrill deep to right field to send them to a Game 5, and the rest is history. They came back from 3 down against the Yanks, and the legend was born. Happy birthday to the greatest designated hitter, in my opinion, of all time, David Ortiz.
Wow, sounds like you should be on PTI with that little blurb. That was great.
I'm weaving
one of the
together,
greatest compliments you can get right there.
Yeah,
dude. Some people are bigger than baseball, and David Big Papi was that. I mean, he is an absolute staple. There's some people, I don't know if it's because when you're young and you're watching them that you're just enamored by, but David Ortiz was exactly that,
And there's some people too, like when you're young, and with musicians too, when you're first getting into something, especially when you're young, I mean, some of these guys are just giants to you. And the older you get, most musicians, most athletes, most whatever, people you look up to as a child, like they come down to size, right? But there's always a few of them that stay in that realm. And I think David Ortiz is always one that's just like, holy shit, man. Big Papi.
That's great. Well, speaking of another person that was, bigger than life, in 1990, Paul McCartney's birth certificate is auctioned for $18,000. And this is confusing, Chris. This is very confusing.
Okay, first off, my first thought, and this may not be what you're expecting right now, but 18 grand for Paul McCartney's birth certificate seems kind of low.
Yeah, I was not expecting you to say that. I mean, I guess that, like, if you own the birth certificate, like, do you own Paul McCartney? Like,
well, that's the thing. Like, how can something like that get to auction? Like, doesn't somebody need that? Like, here it's like you need your birth certificate and your social security card.
Paul's like, no, I don't.
I guess when you're Paul McCartney though, he's probably knighted or some shit over in England. So like, he could probably get away with,
Maybe he fell on dark days and he needed some extra cash and he was just looking at what he could sell. And he's like, it's like, I don't need my birth certificate.
It's like the equivalent of,
I've never needed my birth certificate to my knowledge. I probably have, but like, my mom knows where it's. I don't know where it's at. So
is auctioning your birth certificate like the British songwriter equivalent of Frank Thomas ending up on those like Nugenics commercials for like the testosterone replacement for old men? Like Frank Thomas and Brett Favre like trying to hawk these things, or like celebrities like getting like crypto endorsement deals. Like is this like the equivalent for that? Like, hey, like Need
It's
some
like
cash.
selling organs on
I
the
know,
black
but
market.
but at least a birth certificate, you just get a copy, another copy from the government, I
Yeah.
suppose.
It's crazy. That's really it. I don't even know why. Like, yeah, did he? I guess he made the money. I don't even know why you'd want to do that.
But also, I'm not sure if it was Sir Paul that sold. I can't imagine he would sell his own birth
He had
certificate.
already sold it once before.
But like, if I'm Paul McCartney in 1990, surely I have more lucrative things that I could sell,
Yeah.
as opposed to my birth certificate. So that's why I don't think it was him. But then again, that adds a deeper question: like, how did somebody get control of Paul McCartney's birth certificate?
Legally, yeah,
Or maybe illegally.
maybe. But then it wouldn't have been sold at an auction if it
That's
was
true. It would have been
maybe.
sold in the black market.
Yeah.
And we wouldn't be talking about it today because it wouldn't be publicized.
Deep dive incoming.
Yeah.
Conspiracy theories, but
Yep. Episode
moving on.
192 is locked up right now with the case of Paul McCartney's birth certificate. Ethan, I'll let you take the next one because if I were to bet, I think this is what you were referencing earlier.
it wasn't. It was actually one of the ones later down.
Okay. I got you. Well, I'll let you take that one too.
Either way, in 1991, U2 releases Achtung Baby. And as I said before, we listened to U2 growing up at the house, and my dad is a big U2 fan. And yeah, I love some Achtung Baby, dude. And I think I definitely haven't listened to U2 very often ever since they put that album on my iPod.
Songs of Innocence.
I'm not saying that was the reason I don't, but I haven't gone to the U2 well. That's like, there's some bands that are just, they're so big that I just don't spend a lot of time with them right now because you almost feel like you know them, so you don't need to listen to them. I haven't been in the U2 space in a while, but I do have a lot of time ahead of me, so I'm gonna do that. This album has One on it, which everybody loves. Not the Metallica version.
Until the End of the World, and also Mysterious Ways.
Yeah, Mysterious Ways was one of
really
my
great
favorites
song
as a young kid.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, I kind of group U2 and Tom Petty in similar spheres in my mind, in the sense that I really, really love both of them, but I don't spend the amount of time that is requisite with the love that I feel for them, which I'm not sure why. There's so much of it, and I don't know. But yeah,
like when a Tom Petty or U2
together.
song comes on my playlist, I'm like, yeah, this is good.
And then you have the thought like, oh, I got to listen to more of this.
Yeah, they are so good. The voices are just both so special, and they come on and you're just like really happy, and then you have to wait till it comes up randomly again. I feel like you can't seek it. You don't want to overplay it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree. I'll take the next two to leave the one after that for you. This one's super simple. We'll talk about it later. But on this day in 1993, as we said, Nirvana performed and recorded MTV Unplugged in New York. And then on this day in 1994, the Rolling Stones became the first major act to live stream a concert on the internet, live streaming 20 minutes of their show at the Cotton Bowl in Dallas, Texas. This turned out to be a publicity stunt to promote an upcoming pay-per-view concert, because the utility of live streaming something in 1994 was not necessarily high, considering that probably not very many people were able to receive it and view it. And I can only imagine what a live feed of something could have possibly looked like on the internet 30 years ago. But I'm kind of surprised that this happened in 1994. I feel like this would have been a first later on in the decade, but I guess the Stones got to it first.
Well, the nice part is I don't think that of course people cared that if it was good quality or not, but at the same time, people were just happy that they had it, so they probably didn't even care.
Well, it's crazy too. Like there's a whole lot of discourse around that time too. People debating the long-term utility or sticking power of the internet, and just like, people forecasted how deeply entrenched we would become with it and how intertwined we would become with it. And I wonder, if anybody at that time could have imagined, what it would become now. It's hard to say.
People are saying the same thing about what it'll look like in 20 years from now. People are imagining it. So, but it's what do you want to believe until it happens? Because it happens so fast. Because every 20 years, you take 19 to 1920, probably, I mean, there's some change, but 1920 to 1940, like a little bit more change, but like 40 to 60, 60 to 80, 80 to 2000, 2000 to 2020, like it's so exponential and like we're at the spot.
I mean, even just in terms of like
the imagination has definitely grown because of the spike in the last 40 years.
Yeah. And I always think about it in terms of like the changes, like what like one lifespan in time could have seen the most changes. And like my grandfather was born in 1936 and he's still with us. And like the changes that he's seen in his life, I mean, he was born before World War II happened and before television was a thing. And now, you know, he knows how to work Netflix on his smart TV. Like that's unfathomable to me. It's really ridiculous.
It is really, that is something. Yeah. A full life of just life being life changing. Holy cow. Yeah. Impressive.
His whole expanse he cannot see.
All right. So that was 94, right?
Yeah, it was 94. Next up is 03.
2003, November 18th, Blink-182 releases their self-titled fifth studio album with songs like I Miss You and Feeling This. They also have the song Always on there, which is one of my favorites. And I also want to shout out Down by them. Blink-182 growing up, man, I was such a fan. And like, they definitely like, I mean, they're still playing, they're back together. Haven't seen them, hesitant to go see them, but like, if there's one thing that I've learned through having a podcast and music in general is I'm going to definitely be showing my kids a lot of music and having them listen when they're young, because it's very clear that it's just more impactful when you're young. Like hearing stuff and having heroes or having whatever, like it's so fun. Like I can recall, like there's like Blink-182 will be one of my favorite bands forever. It doesn't matter what, I mean, I guess they could do something, but like as far as like what they're producing now and putting out, like, you know, I still have those core memories of when it came out in the first place and when I was listening to it, and it's just special. Like there's no way around it, and it could have been anything, but it was those guys. You know what I mean? Like it literally, I have random artists that I just, you know, you call back to, and it could be literally any type of music, but that's what was in front of me, and that's what I had to listen to, and it was more limited back then. Yeah, even in the 2000s, obviously.
I'll never forget. Madden 2004 with Mike Vick on the cover was one of the first video games I got, and Feeling This was in the soundtrack. And oh man, like to this day, when I listen to that song, it's just an instant time machine back to like being a kid at that time and like playing video games with my brother and like sitting in our basement, like because we had the basement TV that like when we got a PlayStation 2, it was like, you know, this is where it goes. Like it's not going in the living room, you know, like you guys will go down there and play like when you're allowed to and whatnot. And like I still remember like the way everything looked, like the way the little table looked in there and how the couch felt. And oh man, yeah, what a crazy time machine that album is, and particularly that song for me. So 21 years old today.
We could definitely do an episode on video game soundtracks, because we've talked about it a few times, and I'll never forget, man. Like, because soundtracks to video games are just so fun. And there was one of the Maddens, or maybe it was NFL 2K5 that was playing, and with T.O. on the cover, and
2K5,
goated, absolutely. I mean, 2K5, NBA Live 06, like. Those are just the games.
There's just certain years for some of those games that like
I love it.
You just give the nod to. It's like, all right.
Well, and a lot of nostalgia posts are coming up, and they were like, when people talk about peak gaming and what it was like, and like going to midnight releases and stuff. I mean, it resonates big time, and like just being able to live through like the Halo surge, live through the Call of Duty 4, Modern Warfare, the first time zombies, like Call of Duty 5, and you know, it's just certain stuff just will stick. It's just so cool that we got to live it.
It's a common language for anybody our age, you know.
But I remember in 2K5, you know, there was a time where, you know, you could build your player, but you could work on your skills and do training camp, and there were mini games, and you could do like drills. And I just remember like grinding those drills to make my player better. And like they would always have music in the background. And because you were just doing drills and there was no one on the field, like the music was louder. You know, there was no crowd music. It was just like playing the game to music versus like, and you know, I just I just remember being like, I can't believe I'm like grinding these mini games, but like it was kind of fun too. It's just like,
oh yeah,
they're like side quests in like Mario Party or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Good
100%. Yeah. Oh man, that's great stuff. One final event, as we typically do, we end on a somber note. On this day in 2017, ACD founding member. What's that?
We typically end somber note.
I think we did once
Deaths.
recently, so I'm just deciding that we do that typically, even though we don't.
From now on, we're always going to end with something really depressing.
Who died on this day? Like,
deaths are a good way to end.
Yeah, and speaking of death, on this day in 2017, Malcolm Young, founding member of AC/DC, passes away at age 64. And Ethan, are you aware that AC/DC, they're still touring?
I feel like maybe I was aware of that.
They need to give it up.
Yeah, I don't know who's looking for that right now.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's like it's kind of. I mean, they're all quite a bit younger, but it feels like it's verging on Frankie Valli territory.
That video, that stuff is freaking hilarious.
Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah, off the stage. Yeah, I agree. It's just be done.
Yeah, man.
But who are we to say? So that wraps up this day in music.
That's the yapping. 30
That's
minutes
the yapping,
in.
Yeah. We made it. How you say we're 30 minutes in?
Yeah, 31. That's
about right.
09.
So if you guys are still listening, thank you very much. We do This Day in Music every week. We have the same format every week, so you know what to expect. And now we get to the meat of the episode. We're going to talk about Nirvana's MTV Unplugged set in New York. And Chris, this is something that if you're listening to this podcast, you've watched it. Everybody out there, like this is a big door to Nirvana, to grunge music, to understanding the time, 94, the landscape of music, and it is just critical. So I think everybody out there has watched this, if not 10s or 20s times, at least once or twice. How many times? Like, I mean, it's not even.
Oh
really,
man, this was one of the first grunge things. Like, and case in point, we met and like we went to school in 2014, 2015, and I remember in the summer of 2015. So pre Grunge Bible, because that came in February 2016. Summer 2015, I had to have my wisdom teeth out, and they give you the options. They're like, we can put you under. We can like give you gas, or we can like Novocaine you and give you gas, but like you'll be conscious for it. You'll just be like really fucking high. And I was like, okay, like I don't really think I need to like go under anesthesia for this. Just make me high and do what you have to do. And they're like, okay, cool. By the way, you can listen to music. Like bring your phone if you want. And I chose to listen to MTV Unplugged while I had my wisdom teeth out, while I was high as a kite. And that choice, like that was very, very early on in my exploration, certainly into Nirvana, but even into like the grunge genre in general. So I think for anybody that came after the era that didn't grow up and, buy Nevermind or see Teen Spirit on MTV or wait in line to get In Utero, like this is such a window into the band. And, there's a band that this showed that they could do both, right? I mean, they had the really, really in your face heavy stuff. And, the way that they approached this Unplugged set was totally unlike anything that they had done before. And they killed it. And as we said before, they killed it without much practice and with a lot of reservations and with a lot of nerves built up into it. And I think, the thing about Kurt is like his personality was fashioned in a way that he was just kind of apathetic about everything and just kind of like a whatever guy, and like nothing really fazed him, and he was just kind of like over it all the time. At least that's what he portrayed. But with this show leading up to it and also during it, I mean, like he was really, really nervous, and you could tell that he really, really wanted to do it right and to do it well. And I certainly did. Ethan, do you remember kind of like your beginning intro to this? Yeah.
For the first time watching it, no, I don't remember one pinpoint time. But what I do know is, Nirvana can be, especially if you're going back and listening, and the way music landscape is now, like it was like, you got to listen to Nirvana. They're one of the biggest bands of the time.
Yeah.
Okay. And you have no idea what it's going to be. And you listen to them. it may not fit what you expect, and you may not like them. I mean, it's Nirvana. I mean, people love them, but also there's a lot of people that don't get it and stuff.
Yeah.
And I think I was like that for a while because my dad was not a huge fan of them. So I was just like, oh, you can't understand them. Why would you even listen to somebody you can't understand? People make fun of Weird Al has a song or, and he talks about gargling, gargling marbles and, not being able to speak. Anyway, but then you watch this. So I remember watching this for the first time and being like, I get it, right? I understand Nirvana. And so if you've never gotten into Nirvana and it's like not something that you understand really, if you go and watch this, it will make sense, right? You'll be able to see the artistic side of Kurt and the band. You'll be able to see the realness and rawness. And I remember watching it and really being like, and same thing with a lot of videos I think we watch. Sometimes I watch stuff and I'm like, how is this real, right? Like, how is this? This is like an hour and a half or it's like an hour and 15 minutes show, and like they sound check the whole time, like they're talking to each other, they're just like playing, and it's like concerts would never be like that now. And if they did, if people were always sound check, people would get annoyed, right? Like it would be uncomfortable, not uncomfortable, but like you have to have some sort of authenticity to be able to do this. And even when people are like bantering and talking, like it's usually like, all right, just play the song. But then you watch this and like the way that Kurt would just like, we kind of interact with the fans. People said like, play Freebird, Pearl Jam. And he would like respond. He like lit up a cigarette the way that he was like, oh, we're supposed to play the Meat Puppets. Like Brothers Meat, come out, and it was like, there was so much like in between and stuff that normally would be cut out, but it just was so real. And like, and when I went back, getting ready for this, I'm watching and I'm just like, it's like a movie. Like it really is like, it's almost like he's so real. It seems like he's acting, because you watch other people on stage and you're like, oh, this is a performance. But this is like the most intimate concert I think almost ever put on. Right. Like, in the sense, of course, there's like, you're in the green room or whatever, but like this was a concert, but it was as intimate as you could be on stage with people. So nonchalant, so genuine. So like he gave it everything he could in every song, and they were beautiful. It really is the best version of Nirvana you're gonna get.
Yeah,
right? Like,
I would agree.
It's stripped down, it's unplugged. Like you can actually hear him. You can hear the drums are at a great volume. Everybody, I guess it's possible for Dave Grohl not to pound the drums. And like there's cello, there's strings. Like it's unbelievably well done. And it didn't really practice. And I just remember watching it the first time and just being like amazed. And then that's why people go back to it so much, because it's literally a movie. It's like an hour film of like, and it pulls you in. And I mean, we've rewatched concerts before, but this one definitely has a different feel to it, where you put it on and you're just like, all of a sudden you're just like, oh, Kurt. Like I'm just like watching Kurt in his, it literally, it seems like a practice session, and you're just so invested, and you want him to kind of ramble on and talk and this and that. It's impressive. It really is impressive.
And especially too, because at this point, like, with the MTV Unplugged program rolling along, I mean, Nirvana, I would say would have been the biggest fish in the pond for MTV to land. And, they had wanted Nirvana on for so long. I mean, and this is after, you've got Nevermind changes the music world, and Utero's out. I mean, the expectations for Nirvana finally on Unplugged, they could not have been higher. And the fact that they were able to deliver on something like that, and change the way that they played, and really approach it in a way that some other bands hadn't. And with, venturing into that territory and being so successful in doing so, was really, really impressive. And just to kind of contrast it with another Unplugged set I love, which would be Pearl Jam's, which came a year and change earlier, maybe a year and a half earlier. That was just the band playing their songs, just unplugged. I mean, Dave was just hammering on the drums. But, when you get to Nirvana's set, Dave Grohl's playing with brushes and whatnot, and that really kind of changes the tone. And he spoke about Dave spoke about the Unplugged show, and he said we'd seen a lot of other bands do Unplugged tapings, and what they'd done was basically rock out the songs as if they were playing electric instruments. They didn't do anything to change the songs. They just basically plugged in acoustic guitars instead of electric ones. There was no way we were going to try to pull off Smells Like Teen Spirit with fucking acoustic guitars. It wouldn't work. And so when the band finally agrees to do this, they're at a point in time where they're touring with the Meat Puppets, and they wanted to approach this in a little bit of a different way. So, first and foremost, as Dave said right there, a lot of their most popular songs, the In Blooms of the world, the Teen Spirits of the world, they really weren't going to work without massively being rearranged, which is something that I can't imagine that the band was necessarily down for. And, all of the guys in the band, but particularly Kurt and Chris Novoselic, they were big fans of Mark Lanigan's first solo record called The Winding Sheet, which had come out in 1990. And, Kurt and Mark Lanigan were really close friends, and they kind of honed in on that album as kind of a blueprint and a vibe that they wanted to capture, and maybe emulate in a certain way for this Unplugged show. So not only would they kind of steer clear of the hits, but they would, change the way that they played a little bit, and choose songs, I think, that served that purpose and that got them into that element. And famously, as I'm sure we'll get to later on, they close with "Where Did You Sleep Last Night," with the Leadbelly cover, and that was a nod and inspired by Mark Lanigan's cover, which came on The Winding Sheet, with which Kurt and Chris both contributed to on that album and on that track. And in the time between, right after The Winding Sheet, Cobain and Lanigan wanted to get together and do a Leadbelly cover album, but it never materialized. But, with that being said, Cobain had actually invited Mark Lanigan to join them in a guest spot on MTV Unplugged. And Mark wrote about this in his memoir, which came out in 2020. And he said, in early November of 1993, shortly after I'd finished Whiskey for the Holy Ghost, Kurt asked me if I wanted to do a version of the Leadbelly song "Where Did You Sleep Last Night" with Nirvana on the TV show MTV Unplugged. That was the song we'd recorded for our aborted blues project, and I had ended up using it on my first solo record. He was always looking for ways to shine light on my talents and lift me up, but his ideas often struck me as slightly embarrassing, inappropriate charity, if you will. It just felt weird to me as a relatively unknown singer to come out and do a song with the biggest band in the world during a taping of what was a very popular show. I respectfully declined. "Okay, I'm going to sing it then," he said. "Just like you did it, brother, if that's cool with you." And just, unbelievable. And oh my God, I would have, current me would have shit a brick if Lanigan had played at Unplugged. And, the guest element is not something that died with Mark Lanigan, and Mark's, turning down of this, obviously, is, instead of Lanigan, we get a helping of the brothers Meat, the Kirkwood brothers from the Meat Puppets, who, as we said, Nirvana was touring with at the time. And, not only is MTV a little pissed off with the band that they're not playing their hits, right? A Tale of the Tape, I think they played 6 covers out of 14 songs, and they were not well-known covers, right? But furthermore, MTV's a little pissed at necessarily who exactly they're having to guest. So Alex Coletti, who was an MTV producer who worked on the Unplugged show, has done interviews in the subsequent years, and he had this great bit, this great quote about their approach with the Meat Puppets coming on. And Coletti went on to say, "I said to MTV, they're going to bring some guests on, and at first everybody's eyes lit up, like, who's it going to be? They wanted to hear the right names, Eddie Vedder or Tori Amos." But when I said the Meat Puppets, it was kind of like, oh, great. They're not doing any hits, and they're inviting guests who don't have any hits to come play. Perfect. But that's just that's Nirvana, and that's what they did, and that's what Kurt did. He didn't care. And it wouldn't have worked if they had a big name come on. It wouldn't have worked. But the fact that you get the Meat Puppets on, and you get them playing their songs, which are relatively unknown to the greater public, and make them iconic together. That's an authentic moment that wouldn't have existed had an A-lister come on.
Yeah, and it's so funny because MTV, you know, they have what they imagine them coming on and playing, and like they, you know, at the end, you know, they're upset or whatever, and they have no idea that they've just recorded and they have the rights, or you know, they have MTV Unplugged Nirvana. Like they have the best thing you could ask for. It's
like
perfect.
You got them
it's
to do it.
It's legit, like perfect. I mean, you know, maybe could have got a few other songs, but no, like he said at the end, he's like, you know, this is the last song we're playing. And they asked him to go out and play an encore. And Kurt was like, no, he's like, that's it. And it's just funny because the, you know, producers and people think they know what's best. And obviously artists has their own visions, and people, you have to decide real time, like what is the better choice. And obviously Kurt just is going to do what he wants, but it played out the way it should have. And like I said, it worked really well. And yeah, it's funny because obviously, you know, I say that no other concerts are like this, but obviously Lane Staley and Alice in Chains, their Unplugged is beautiful, and it's like it has a lot of the same feelings, and it's perfect. And then you have Pearl Jam's, which is also super riveting and really good. And I don't know, there's something, it's weird though, because you think about NPR's Tiny Desk. That's the biggest thing, closest thing to it. Like now, people have seen a ton of videos, and they keep putting them out there. Or you have the audio trees of the world. And I don't know, if somebody were to attempt to do something like Kurt and kind of be so nonchalant and act like they didn't care, it would be so difficult to feel the realness to it if it happened in like the Tiny Desk setting. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. There's something, like you said, it's just Kurt. I mean, it has
one
to
of those
be him.
things like he, you know, everybody makes a big deal out of like a stage presence like that. And like Kurt kind of invented that, right? Like he was the guy who made that happen. And I think this show is really that at its best. And oh man, I love what you said earlier, where it's like, you know, I think you said when you're listening to Nirvana, sometimes you kind of got to be in the right place for it, in the right mood for it. But, and, you know, they tend to be, I think out of the big four, as we talk about, they tend to be the one that I'd say them along with Pearl Jam, just because of critiques that people have about that band. But, you know, if there's one out of the four that people don't really get down with, it could be Nirvana. But I would say like the Unplugged album, like you cannot close the book on Nirvana until you've given the Unplugged performance and the associated album your full attention at least once or twice.
And in the same breath, like it's just like when you put on a movie, there's those memes of like, when you put on a movie, you know it's good when your dad stops and like crosses his hands and is like watching, and he's like really close to the TV because it catches your attention.
Or like standing behind the couch.
Yeah. And then he's like, update, he got closer, or like then they sit down. Like if sometimes you can't, like we talk about a lot, you need to be in the right space to listen to music. If you put this on with, you know, with the visuals for sure, it sucks you in. It really, for some reason, it gets me in that mood all the time. Whether I want to be in that mood or not is a different story. But if all of a sudden, if I start watching, like before this, like it's like, oh, all of a sudden I'm like really interested, and I was like, damn, you know, and that's why it's really good.
Well, that's happened to me the last couple of days, and I think so often when we prepare for these episodes, like at the beginning at least, sometimes it can kind of feel like a chore, like, oh, I have to refamiliarize myself with this. And I don't listen to a lot of Nirvana. I really don't listen to a ton of grunge in the day-to-day at this point in my life, but same thing. You know, I just went to Spotify and I found the album, but I was like, you know what? Like, I gotta watch this too. So like, I set it up, and you know, what was initially I planned was just going to accompany me and be background music. Like it sucked me in. And you know, this is one of those performances too that really one of the last, if not the last big thing that the band did together, obviously with Kurt dying in April of 1994, which, you know, is 5 months away. And, you know, it's just, it comes at such a strange point. And this is one of those where I really do think that regardless of, you know, if Kurt had did die in 94, or if he had lived, I think that the iconic nature of this would have persisted and still would have been as great because of just how powerful it is. And I mean, I just can't get over the like the tail of the tape as it comes to the songs that they chose. So they played 14 songs in one take, which was a rarity for Unplugged, and a rarity for kind of live produced shows like that. Just one take. One song from Bleach, which was about a girl, which Kurt hilariously in the way that he does introduced it, he's like, this one's from our first album. Most people don't know it. You had 4 from Nevermind, 3 from In Utero, and you had 6 covers. I mean, you had a David Bowie cover, you had the Vaselines making an appearance, you had Leadbelly, you had the Meat Puppets. I mean, this was like, you know, I mean, I'd never heard of the Vaselines, and I'd never heard of the Meat Puppets until I listened to this album. And as a blues fan myself, it's really cool to think that there's people maybe who are getting into Leadbelly and the old blues because of you know, their choice to cover this, or similarly in a way that, you know, if people hear the story that it was inspired by the Winding Sheet version from Lanigan, it's cool that could be a bridge. But I mean, this is just like, you know, it's like an hour and a half of the best things about music, in my opinion.
Yeah, and the funny part and the, I don't know, ironic part is like, I look at this set list now, knowing what we know now, 31 years later, and you're just like, I'm like, oh, perfect set list. Like it's just like the covers are perfect, everything's perfect. But the only reason it's like that is because this happened 31 years ago. Right. When they were first like, we're gonna play. You
imagine
songs,
watching this live? The guy was like, why would Jesus don't want me for a son theme?
Yeah, like that back then. It's like, that wouldn't make any sense to people. Like, why are we doing this? But now, like 30, it's like you know, I love that version of the song. Yeah, you know,
it's like the equivalent of like your favorite football team going out there and like choosing to punt on second down, but somehow it being the best decision they've ever made, and it like wins them the game. Yeah, and then like everybody's doing it after that.
Yeah,
you know,
it's like. It's just so funny, like looking back and being like, yeah, the set list is perfect. But back then, everybody's like, they're not playing any hits. Like, what the hell?
Well, that's the thing. Like, we look at this now, and I love that you brought that up, because like we look at this now and it's like, hell yeah, like, oh me, it's one of the best moments on the album. And at the time, like, what the fuck is Oh Me? Like, who the fuck are the Brothers Meat? And certainly people that were more associated with or more in tune to like the music scene at that time would have been aware. But like, your average person who like, you know, loves Teen Spirit or something is like, oh yeah, like Nirvana's going to be on Unplugged, and they tune into this, like, you know, they're probably pissed, but like once it happens, you know, you kind of get a lot of appreciation. And like the script was kind of flipped. I forget the specific quote, but like David Bowie had a really funny quote where in the aftermath of this, and he loved the cover that they did of Man Who Sold the World, but afterwards he had a really funny interaction with a fan, and he was like, wow, like it's so cool that like you covered that Nirvana song, Man Who Sold the World. And he's like, fuck off. But it just like goes to show you like, you know, it's just the intersection of an unbelievably talented band and just like an iconic people, right? I mean, like Nirvana, you know, those guys and Pat too, because people forget that Pat Smear was in Nirvana.
Who's there?
Present and accounted for here. You know, and the fact that they have the Meat Puppets there, and they have a cello player, Laurie Goldston, playing, and it works perfectly, and it's beautiful music, and it's everything that's good about this band, and it's everything that's good about that time period. I think it's just so authentic, and you know,
it's peak.
It couldn't have happened any other way.
No, it really can't. I mean, it just, there's hardly things that are perfect in music, but just seems like, you know, divine intervention just set up, and like it was just awesome. And it's sad that it's one of the last things that they did. But you know, that adds to the lore of the band, and I don't. We talk about covers becoming other people's songs all the time, and like it's just I think it's a tough decision, I think, to do covers when it's your show, because you don't want to, like, I mean, you want people to know your music. I think that like a lot of times people I don't know, covers coming back, did they ever disappear for a while? But people want to play their own music,
right? As people always do, but how cool of a moment that he had this platform and the band had this platform, and they're like, "We're going to play."
Taking a chance.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like every
especially
time you
not playing the hits like this, and I think you mentioned it earlier, but something I want to talk about in terms of taking a chance, and if it happened any other way, it wouldn't have been as iconic, but how they closed this show. So the 13th song was All Apologies. And a lot of people in attendance, when that song had closed, I think there was the assumption that was the end, right? But there was one more track, and it was the Lead Belly cover, Where Did You Sleep Last Night? And this was one I've read that they had rehearsed, and they were struggling with arranging all of the instruments into this one. And, Kurt had in the band had just kind of decided like, hey, like, I'm going to give this a go solo. Like Kurt decided to give it a go solo. And it turned out, certainly 31 years later, it's one of the most iconic moments of the show. I think the close of this song where he's singing and he hits that pause and the closing line of I'll shiver the whole night through, and he holds it. The unbelievably raw emotion that comes through there. And Alex Coletti, as we mentioned, who was the producer for MTV, he said, I really tried to get Kurt to do an encore. I had Dave, Chris, and Pat ready to do it, but Kurt just wasn't into it. I was just doing my job for MTV at that point, trying to get that one extra song in the can to see if the night could produce one more gem. The pleading went on for about 5 minutes. Finally, Kurt said, I can't top that last song. And when he said that, I backed off because I knew he was right. And the tape doesn't lie, and history certainly doesn't lie in the sense that Kurt was right. But once again, it's one of those things that, Kurt specifically, but the band as a whole, like they knew what was right for this setting, and they knew exactly how to approach this with the expectation, and they couldn't have put on a better show.
I mean, who doesn't do an encore, right?
Yeah,
like that's uncommon for somebody to come out, and then for him
and
to
who
be like,
ends
no,
what biggest rock band in the world at any point ends a very iconic show with a Lead Belly cover?
Yeah, no less. And just be like, no, like that was perfect. I can't top it. And then having the whereabouts be like, yeah, not go and water down the experience. I mean, not that anything, obviously he would have killed anything that he did for the next song, but just really good insight, incredible work to like listen. Cause they finally, by the end of it, they were like, I wonder what they like as it was going on, if they were like, this is really good. I wonder if they knew, because then Kurt said that and he was like,
how emotionally exlosuch they would be after something like this, especially Kurt after that song.
My gosh.
Like if such an unbelievably talented musician is like, I don't have anything else in me, like that was the last one. Like
it's like when you go when you're in the weight room and you go for a max and you hit it or whatever, and mentally you're like, this is my last rep of the day, and then you like take it off your shoe and the coach is like, one more, and you're just like, how am I supposed to do that? Like, I can't top that.
Yes. No, the amount of times that's happened to me. And it's one of those things.
Like one more chance.
There's a parallel. And like, I used to tell my athletes this, and like the people I lived with, I'm like, okay, like if like you failed it and you want to take it again, or like if you did it and like you're thinking about doing another round, I was like, if you have to think about it, I don't think you should. And it's one of those, like, if you had to think about doing an encore, if you had to be convinced, then you shouldn't. Because I mean, especially, like 100% or higher in the weight room is the same thing as like ending an iconic show, where it's like, we're playing with fire here. Like it's very specific forces at work here. And like, if your cup runneth over, it's really going to leave a sour taste in your mouth.
I've definitely done that, where it's like, all right, you go in full go and make or miss. You sit down and you're just like, I'm going to rest and I'm going to do it again. And then like 2 minutes go by and you're like, I'm not getting underneath that bar again. There's just no way. Like, or it's like, or sometimes you're like, you're forced to do it and you're just like, the ending, what's about to happen.
Like, it's like, I'll give it the good old college try, but it ain't going to work. Yeah. And oh my God, I'm so happy that they didn't. I'm glad that old Coletti there wasn't able to convince Kurt to get back out there. I can't even imagine where they would have gone after that too. To have something like that and then to go back to like another cut from one of the albums or something to close with that. Like it wouldn't have worked. And just good on the band and Kurt for like knowing unequivocally what worked for them and understanding and not budging. It was so perfect in this moment. And really, as I've said before on the show, and well, like, I'm not a huge Nirvana fan. It's certainly my least favorite of like the big four, as we talk about, but I couldn't love this more. I couldn't love this performance more. It's such a, when I watch it, when I listen to it, I remember everything that I felt when I first started getting into the genre, which not every song does that for me, and not every video does that for me. But this one, evergreen. I remember, being 18 and falling in love with this shit.
It really is evergreen, and like people who throw around this word a lot, iconic.
Yeah,
and icons.
People do.
This is the definition of iconic, right? And I wrote down, like, if you haven't watched it, or if you're not in, this is how you enter fandom. And if you're not a fan, like, you admire what is going on, right? I mean, it's just hard to deny that it was special. And it's, so we didn't go song by song. And if you're out there, I think we got the point across pretty clearly.
For me, it's bigger than that, than trying to get into the nuts and bolts.
If we did that, like, we could comment on everything, like when I watch it, I find like beauty and like, the way that he turns and talks to, Dave, and the way Dave interacts, and it's like, oh, he just lit up a cigarette. That's so badass.
Yeah. And the way that like
you could
they're tuning the guitars, and like it's taking
Yes.
a while. And he's like, you'd figure big successful rock band, we'd have like 100 guitars on stage, you know?
Exactly. And it's like, you could literally comment on everything being like the coolest part of the show. So
yeah.
You just got to watch it.
Kurt does not get enough credit for how funny he was. He was such a funny dude. And, this was the perfect forum for him, despite the nerves and the uncertainty about it. Oh man, what a great show.
Just real. It just shows you that being real is like just being yourself and unapologetically. And it's just like, Kurt said that he wasn't ready for fame, but he was like perfect for it, to be honest.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
As far as like, he just was real, which everybody I think wants to see.
Yeah, man.
They don't know it, but they do. Oh man. Well, I mean, we could go on, kind of keep saying the same thing, but
there's no need to, everybody knows what
we can't
what I'm talking about.
We can't top it, Chris.
No, we can't.
We can't go out there for an encore.
Yeah, that's where we're going to end it. Ethan, it was fun reviewing this album. It's weird that we didn't review it or dedicate an episode to it sooner, but I'm glad it worked out for the 31st anniversary.
I mean, we did the other two, right? We did PJ and Alice for this.
At this point, I forget what
it's hard because I was like, we definitely did this, but you're like, no, we haven't.
I think we did like a master episode once where we did like all of the Unplugged, which I don't know why we did that, but episode topics are a hot commodity. It's like you got to hold on
because
to
then we could break it down into tertiary things, right?
Yeah, like they're a non-renewable resource. So thank you all for listening. If you're still with us, we hope you enjoyed that discussion of Nirvana's MTV Unplugged. We'd like to thank our producer, Drew McFadden. I'd like to thank anybody who has joined the Patreon once again, and preemptively thank those of you who are about to join the Patreon once this episode ends. If you want some merch for your holiday grunge Bible fan, you can go to the show notes and click our merch website. There's some goodies there you can buy. And Ethan, I'd like to thank you again for coming on this journey with me. And if you've got nothing else, I think we can head to the songs of the week before we get on out of here.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. It's always fun when we do it. The lead up is never the lead up may not be the most enjoyable thing, but I'm always happy when we're
my cup's always full when we're in it and when it's wrapping up. So
yeah,
feels
exactly.
Good.
So yeah, we'll pop over to songs of the week, and I must say I'm full jam right now. I really am. I got me and my buddy Noah and Jeff Coover. We're just sending shows and a lot of Goose right now because they're just getting into it. But I've been listening to a lot more Dead too, a lot of Goose shows, and I'm staying out of the studio. I'm just anything live, like random stuff, like Ozzy Osbourne. Listen to his live stuff. Maybe we talked about last week. I don't know. Things are running into each other, but for this week's song, so I got to do a Goose song, I think, because that's just what I've been listening to, and that's exactly what this segment is about. So I'm going to go ahead and say there's so many good ones, but I'm going to say we're going to go live, Redbird, live at the Salt Shed in Chicago, Illinois on, let's see, January, February, March, April. Yeah, April, 4th month, April 14th, 2023, live at the Salt Shed. And that is Redbird. And really great. Dude, so just some good stuff.
That's fantastic. Dude, the jam goes on forever, man.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty great.
Yeah. Chris, how about you?
My song of the week. I've been kind of weird. I've been in the Elliott Smith zone the last couple of weeks, which is strange because I'm not depressed right now at all. In fact, I'm quite happy. Which the last Elliott Smith zone that I spent a lot of time in, I was incredibly depressed and incredibly unhappy. But yeah, man, there's just something about this is definitely not an original thought, but weather's turning cold. It's it's dark more frequently. I've been drawn to his music a little bit more, and been going for like walks at night around my neighborhood and just like throw some Elliott Smith on and walk around a little bit. So I'm gonna choose his song Twilight. Twilight from Elliott Smith is gonna be my song of the week. There's so many to pick, but that's just the one that I've been into today. But yeah, man, I haven't. Last couple of weeks, really, like I wasn't really into much music, and for some reason, I was like, all right, like I'll just like give Elliott Smith a shot, and it's been scratching the itch. So that's gonna be my song of the week.
Awesome. All right,
yeah, dude.
Everybody, thank you so much again. Thank you, Drew McFadden, our producer. Thank you, Chris Salona. Thank you all to all of our non-existent corporate sponsors out there. If you guys, I feel like there's somebody out there that works in beer, owns a beer company or something. There's got to be a head brewer out there.
There's someone out there.
I would really, really love to drink a beer on one of these next episode. Maybe not the next one, but before Christmas, and shout out the brewery that you work for, whatever your name is out there. So get in contact. Let's drink some beer on the next episode or next few episodes. We'll shout you out, and I think that would just be great. There's somebody out there, right? There's
got to be at least one. I mean, Christ, all the people that can encounter
it's like
this.
We want to share. That goes for anything,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's got
you got gum. You got your own gum. Send us some gum.
Pencils. I don't know. Yeah. Anything. We
gotta get some swag, Chris.
Yeah, we do. That's the thing. That's what Eric Lederman taught us. Always ask for swag.
Yeah, we're asking for swag.
Yeah.
Anyway,
man.
Thank you very much. Have a great week, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Rock and roll. Yeah, that's it, man.
That's it.
That's it from us. Stay heavy.